Hello, and welcome back to CS492F, Futures of the World. Today, we're starting with flipped learning. Today, we start with students teaching me and the other participants in this course about their visions of the future, about their suggestions on how to guide into the future, and their discussion with the rest of the course members. So this topic, the first topic is topic A, Future of Occupation and Economics. And this has been worked on by a group of 3 students, Jihuan Bang, Enso Kim, and Damir Jumatayev. And we start with a presentation, which is given by Damir. And
hello, my name is Enso Kim, and I'm a student of computer science. So nice to meet you.
Hello, my name is Jihuan Pang, and I'm also majoring in computer science, and I'm a graduate student. Yeah, that's it.
Good.
Thank you, Professor. My name is Demir. I'm an undergraduate student in computer science department. I work with 2 amazing students, Insu and Jihuan, and we prepared the presentation on futures of economics and occupation. So I would like to begin with this video. It's called Biggest Scam on Earth. And the biggest scam on planet Earth is a job. And everyone just applauds. Because think about it, you work 40 hours, 40 years for 8 hours a day, and after 40 years, you're still broke. So how is that not a scam? This is the message of the video. And I wanted just a brief interaction with students. Is there anyone who thinks that some elites control the world, some highly status people? Because I took a class on conspiracy culture and nearly half of the students raised their hands. So please raise your hand if you think that the world is controlled by a small group of people with enormous power. So that there is some conspiracy. Oh, no one. That's good. So if no one, then let me continue with the presentation or features of economics and occupation. Today, we will focus on economics specifically. There is this nation called Yap, which is located in Micronesia. It's a very small state, and they use very interesting coins to trade. The largest weighed 4 tons and is 4 meters in diameter. This nation looks like this. And these are the coins used for exchange. And there was once a story about the sailors transporting the stone across the ocean. They got into some trouble and dropped the stone overboard. The sailors then returned back to the main island and told everyone that, oh, we lost our coin, which was huge. And the group of people, of Yap people, decided that the sailors still owned the stone. And while it was not still part of the monetary system, while it was not physically present there, it was still used as, it was still part of the island's economy. You might think that this is just some case of a small nation that happened many, many years ago, but we have a real-world example. In 1932, the Bank of France asked the USA to exchange their deposits from dollars to gold, but it was too much trouble to send all the exchanges for gold to Europe because gold weighs a lot. So what they decided instead is that someone went to where the gold was stored and just marked it with a pencil that this belongs to France, and everyone agreed. So with these two examples, I want to show that there is nothing really valuable about a dollar, a stone, a coin, a ruby, whatsoever. There is only one reason why they are valuable. We just decided that we can use them as a standardized means of exchange. For the first time, I thought about economic injustice as a child. I grew up in a family of farmers, and my father was a miner, a coal miner, and then my mother was a banker. And we always lived quite poorly. But from movies and stories of those who were in the US, for example, I knew that bankers, they are one of the richest people in America. So then I asked my mother, why is it so? And she said that they're just different economy. It is stronger, better than where I'm from. I'm from Kazakhstan. So I was quite offended that my mother and my father especially, they worked really hard in a very dangerous job, for example, my father. But he couldn't buy me new sneakers. So now I'm one of those who are not satisfied with the way the world economy works. Studying economic theory and observing the processes in the world, I realized that many economic phenomena are simply not logical or even unfair. For example, the value of Bitcoin or inflation in Venezuela. I had the feeling that economists overcomplicate everything for us ordinary people who do not understand the news about how the Fed funds rate or the Dow Jones index, we don't know how exactly the Fed funds rate, for example, can change the price of sugar in Korea. Well, if earlier society didn't identify themselves with economy in any way, then today our mindset is changing and social institutes begin to evolve. We, the people watching world crisis, we begin to intuitively understand that the economic system stopped being relevant. From here, people of all countries want to solve two problems: how to make it transparent, the economy, and how to combat poverty. These are two main questions that we want to tackle. And we all want to have something changed as people, even if, for example, someone doesn't know about the economy well, but we just don't know what we want to be changed. This fact makes the world society study alternative economic systems and ask the question whether financial mechanisms can work in a different way. And we often hear about discoveries in space, in medicine, in biology, in computer science, but we hear almost nothing about discoveries in sociology, economics, and today I will share our group vision of the economy of the future. What are the things we are frustrated in our economy now? It's this irrational distribution of the economic system, is finance. So we quickly discussed about who can print the money, who has this right. As a second misconception, we think only that states can issue. And yeah, I was really frustrated with the way finance works. I first encountered this phenomenon or even trick for the first time in 2008. It was the US mortgage crisis when Lehman Brothers went bankrupt, even though I was like 6 years at that age. Later, I studied and understood how serious was the crisis. And these Lehman Brothers, they went bankrupt, and the US government allocated huge sums of money to support depositors. At that time, I thought it was strange. The bank seems to be private. It belongs to the shareholders, but the money is managed by the state. So it belongs to the people. Then in 2014, our local currency tenge collapsed twice for the year. I thought it was strange The economy is managed by the state, but we the people, have to pay for it. And the last straw of not understanding was my return from vacation. This is me in India. By the way, I think it's the most interesting country in the world, and it has a very big future in the economy. I checked the bank statement and very quickly calculated how much the bank earned on my card transactions, just basically cheating me on the exchange rate. I realized that the financial system is unstable at all levels and began to look for a solution to these problems. And as it turned out, they exist. In general, the financial system is like in our organism. If the blood flow works poorly, the whole organism experiences problems. In order for the economy to grow, it needs labor, capital, technology. So in this scheme, capital plays the role of blood. And it so happens that banks are those who distill this blood. That is, they perform the role of capital distribution in the economy. When a lot of money is earned in one place, it must be invested where there is a need for production. And the growth of production leads to the growth of income and money supply. But this is ideal picture of the world. In reality, the economic growth is determined not by the market, but by the politicians. In order to keep the electorate and fulfill their election promises, governments artificially stimulate the economy to grow. The mechanism is simple. They think in order for the economy to grow, more money must be injected into it. So the central bank just prints more money and distributes it to second-tier banks. Commercial banks lend this money to companies and people. But since there is now more money in the system, it will go to those who shouldn't have gotten it. And what we see in short term is that we see the natural growth in the economy because the newly printed money has created jobs. And since there is more money in the system now, those who shouldn't have gotten this money will get it. And what we see in the short term is the economic growth. And because this newly printed money, they created jobs and consumer loans. But after a year and a half or 2 years, when it comes back, when it comes time to pay these debts, those companies and people who shouldn't have gotten this money naturally cannot pay it back. So we again see a decline in GDP, an increase in unemployment, and the cycle just repeats itself. Governments again start printing money to stimulate the economy, and this phenomenon is called inflationary spiral. In such a simple way, we can see that it's like a spiral. So, for example, in Kazakhstan, our national currency has depreciated 72 times, and the American dollar depreciated by 52%. But spiral inflation is this systemic problem. The main trick here is another. After bankrupt companies, the bank's loans portfolio deteriorates, its credibility fails. So depositors come and take their money. That is, the bank itself starts to go bankrupt. The bank's loan portfolio deteriorates, confidence in the bank falls, so depositors come and take their money. So the government, which kind of started this mess, announces us that to restore this financial stability, we will allocate billions to support depositors, as was the case with the Lehman Brothers here in 2008. Of course, from political view, it sounds very cool that we will support the bank, we will prevent the crisis. But from economic point of view, it's a banal robbery because with this measure, the government covers the private risks of bankers. So look what happens. you and I are the only source of GDP in the economy. We, the people. That is, I work, I earn money, and I give part of it to the state in the form of taxes, pension, social contributions, and so on. The part of the money that I have left after expenses, I take to the bank for safety as a deposit. But the bank, in turn, is not very attentive to lending to its borrowers. It starts to have problems. It goes bankrupt, and the government takes my money. By the way, your money is here too. So it gives to private hands to pay back my debts. This is such a simple scheme. But my goal is not to demonize banks and governments. I especially don't believe in any global conspiracies. It happens not because bankers are villains or evils, but because any bank is essentially extractive institution. So I mean the driver of all their decisions and actions is to maximize the profit of their shareholders. So it happens that those nodes that have to serve our financial flows want to make money from it. It's hard for us to imagine a bank that wants to serve people and doesn't want to get rich. So we believe that they shall be changed by inclusive institutions as opposed to extractive institutes. So we think that spread of capital determined by participants, not by shareholders. My colleagues Unsu and Jihwan and I, we have formulated a philosophy for such an inclusive financial code, which sounds like this. Money management is not a business, it's mathematics. So in one way or another, we saw that this inflationary spiral was the main problem. And many solutions were proposed. And one was interesting in 1976. The Austrian scientist, Friedrich Hayek, he is the Nobel Prize winner in economics, described the concept of denationalization of money and free economy. He has two big ideas. The first big idea is that the economy in principle cannot be managed centrally, because every second 1,000 economic agents, that's you, me, us, companies, generate 1 million of information. All of it's decentralized and just think logically. No central apparatus, no central computer, no central server can be able to manage it. So we shouldn't expect preventive measures or proactive management from the state administration because so much data. And his second big idea is that if the economic system is based on competition between private and public money, it will lead to an age of stability. It will force financial mechanisms to self-regulate. So the financial sector will undergo all the positive changes that occur in a highly competitive sector. We all know that the competition benefits consumers because goods become cheaper and of higher quality. And Professor Friedrich Hayek proposes to look at money as commodity. So what is private money that we mentioned here? So just imagine that some corporation like Amazon suddenly decides to issue their own currency. And Jeff Bezos say tomorrow that 500,000 of his employees will receive their salaries in Amazoners. It doesn't exist yet, but who knows? So, and with them, he also will pay his suppliers, and respectively, millions of users of the site will be able to pay for purchases in the new currency. And I assure you, in an hour, there will be exchanges, banks, and exchange systems that will set rates. And we will begin to change dollars, euros, Korean ones, whatever. And we will be able to pay for the goods not only by using this fiat traditional currency, but using also this new currency. So we will think and compare the economy of the American dollar, for example, with the economy of Amazon, and we will decide in which currency we want to pay. So with this development of events in 5 years, the FRS rate will not change the price of sugar in Korea, I think. But it's not my fantasy, it's already being a reality of this battle between a cryptocurrency and fiat currency. This is Tether and United States dollars. And there were prototypes in history. For example, in Ithaca, it's the land of of Cornell University. They have this Ithaca Alamine. In Canada, they also have Ontario. So in order to make the movement of funds transparent and secure, we use blockchain. To eliminate the human factor, we use AI. Right now, a Swiss university, which one? ETH probably, is working on a new economic program for cities with weakened economies, such as Detroit, for example. And believe me, if in today's economic system, these cities are bankrupt, in the economy of the future, they have the potential to spend, because the main asset in a decentralized world is people. So answering the question of what the economy of the future will be like, I will say that all social institutions and mechanisms will be taken through the prism of economic efficiency. The economic system itself will become more and more independent from the state. And the management mechanism will belong to us, the people. We will decide what currency to use, and the state will fight for our choice. We will determine interest rates on loans, and we will decide how the state will distribute the budget. In the economy, AI will replace all services, professions, and related to the serving government, such as cashiers, risk managers, lawyers, and so on. And Hayek wrote his Nobel Prize paper in 1976. At that time, there was no AI, there was no blockchain, there was no end-to-end encryption, machine learning, and even mobile internet. And at that time, it was hard to imagine a free economy without all these technologies, but now we can. So again, we want to give the people a choice to which currency to use, interest rates, and how to spread the government budget. We believe people is the only source of this in the economics of the future. And a very important figure to mention is Jacque Fresco. At the beginning of the last century, many people admired technical progress and thought that it would solve all the problems of mankind. And Jacque Fresco, he is a very famous, the most correct word would be engineer and dreamer. So he was also a futurist and self-described social engineer. And he was born in 1916 and he lived a very long life until 2017. I really suggest to read about his biography. So he realized that it was not a panacea, but an important component of an ideal society. So he was a supporter of this idea called technocracy. The essence of this social system is quite simple. In the opinion of technocrats, management of the country is a purely technical task. To solve it effectively, at the head should be the most educated people with the right competencies. From oligarchy, technocrats distinguish that these people should be advanced engineers and other technicians, such as And such background in idea should allow them to distribute resources correctly, to rebuild cities, and in general to rule for the benefit of all citizens. And the opinion of citizens, of course, is not really asked, but they should be able to enjoy progress and prosperity in general. So this is like a very caricaturistic form of technocracy. This is the teaser of Evgeny Zamyatin We. It was the first dystopia in the world. And as we can see, people sit here in, and they look all the same. They lost their identity and live in the same houses, but they should be able to enjoy progress and prosperity. So on the one hand, it sounds rather inhuman. The interests of the individuals are sacrificed to society. On the other hand, everyone is happy and satisfied. So that's also the point and the issue to debate. So it's worth to mention that some historians of technocracy consider the late USSR, where almost all members of the Politburo were technicians by profession. As we remember, it didn't save the country. Rather, it led to the collapse. But another case is small but successful Singapore. So technocracy has moderate and more radical forms. Even there was a project according to which all money in the world should be replaced by units of energy. It's kind of clear why, because energy is spent on production, on transportation, in general, all human activity. So it should become a universal measure. In such a society, stores would not accept Visa card, but for example, jobs. And the idea is strange, but not too far from what Jacque Fresco proposed. And he developed this idea of a resource-based economy, which was based on two simple postulates. All resources are shared, and this is the postulate number one. And in order to manage them effectively, it's necessary to abandon the value form. This is postulate number two. So to say it simply, there will be peace on earth when people stop attributing things value in money and pay attention to their direct purpose. So we can see that golden toilet, in fact, doesn't have any difference compared to regular toilet. So by resource-based economy, golden toilet and another toilet, regular, they will have the same price. They would be equally valued. So this distinguishes the resource-based economy from the idea of Marx, with whom Fresco loudly disagreed. There, the value comes from the amount of labor that had to be spent on to produce a thing, and not its ultimate usefulness in a world where goods have no price, only purpose. So the need for money disappears by itself. Even jobs are not necessary. Just come to the store and take what you want. Sounds like a utopia, but in fact, the history knows enough plans to achieve it, and they were even realistic. An illustrative example is the world model from the 1960s, when Western dreamers faced one of the first energy crises and began to think about how to make sure that no one needed anything. They came up with a theory that could be simplified to three basic principles: to reduce consumption, to optimize energy production, and develop human potential. So in this model, a person doesn't buy too much, eats moderately, lives in a small high-tech house, and rides to work on a bicycle. Due to this, the world energy consumption is falling. Everyone has enough, and the planet ceases to suffer from human greed. Fresco approached the problem From the other side, he believed that labor productivity should grow to such a level that everyone could get everything he or she wanted. And we come here to the third pillar of Fresco worldview, cybernetics, which has many, many definitions. But according to his viewpoint, he understood it as a symbiosis of man and machine, thanks to the technocrats in power. He believed that scientific progress should reach such a level that work is no longer necessary. And these views Fresco promoted through his own organization called Socium Cybernetica, which brought Fresco worldwide fame. So if robots do all the work, then what humans do? He believed that it will solve all the crime problems, unemployment problems. And what would people do? People would be just being busy doing creative work instead of exhausting work, where it's not a dream. In fact, and this is like a fiction science about the ideal future, Fresco himself believed that this level of development can be achieved in 10 years if we just focus on this main goal of humanity and we throw all the resources at it. And he was not speculating, but he was kind of taking a futurologic approach because he was also an engineer. And he just tried to understand the basic objective trends and tried to imagine how they will develop in the future. Many people, of course, consider futurology as pseudoscience. They can be understood. It's necessary to take into account that Fresco was not a writer, but a scientist, an engineer, and clearly described how to realize his strenuous degree of his madness idea. So what was going on in his head might not be able to achieve in the future. The problem of such a project is obvious. It's simple in the sense that we have all the technologies and we have all the knowledge to build it. But when you come to the case with the practical side of faith in the future just is lost. His main tragedy is that it turns out to be unrealistic precisely because we think it is. That is, even significant part of humanity shared this Fresco's ideas that if all these people believed in the project and helped make it a reality, we don't know what they would have accomplished. Fresco's talent as an engineer is undeniable, but his faith in humanity had no basis at all. In fact, he simply believed that we could all give up wars and capital accumulation to build a brighter future. And there is this, his quote, "If you think we can change the world, it just means you are not one of those that will." And trying to comment this, it's so the most important is that the community, to having a community of like-minded individuals. And from that, we can derive that in the economy of the future, the most valuable asset is the creative person. In the future, we will look at banks and pension funds as services that they are unlikely to use anymore, just as we have stopped using television or cash. This is right because the service of our money is commodity, as Friedrich Hayek predicted. So there shouldn't be any margin. And the more people will change their consciousness to economic centric, this is the trend that we try to understand. And the sooner we will realize that the distribution of money in the economy is not a business, but rather a process on the way to create something new for mankind. The more people will strive for financial justice, so the sooner the economy of the future will come. We saw this trend on the decentralization and tried to understand the historical parallels. In Holy Roman Empire, there was no central state. but rather people managed locally. And for example, Italy was also divided in Sardinia, Tuscany, Papal States, and we just think that will this decentralization allow us to pass the great filter? Throughout the whole history, we were divided, but in the last centuries we unified. But will this trend allow us to pass the great filter? This is our question number one. Number two, to what extent our prediction is realistic? To what extent we consider human nature? And number three, can fiat and cryptocurrency peacefully coexist together? By fiat, we mean traditional money. Do masses strive for collective prosperity? That will question whether Jacque Fresco viewpoint can be achievable, and utopian motifs achievable. That's also whether all this human thought can be collected and finally achieved. So that's the questions that we wanted to discuss with you during the discussion part. So if anyone has any ideas, any thoughts, please, very welcome to share.
Thank you. So let's all clap our hands virtually to acknowledge the great presentation by Damir. Right. Okay, so, and with discussion, that means you, the students, the participants in this course, please, everybody turn on video, and if you want to say something, then also turn on audio, and please do go ahead and ask questions or give comments, not about the quality, but about the content. So what do you think is this about the questions, for example? What are your comments, for example, on these 5 questions? Do you have some comment on the first question? Will decentralization allow us to pass the great filter? So a big part of the presentation was essentially about a new vision of democracy, right? So Damir pointed out that maybe democracies, as political democracies, do not include important aspects such as, for example, money, economics. This is limited to banks and to government and not to the people. And he's suggesting that maybe by deliberately decentralizing money, that will help pass the great filter. Is that correct summary?
Yes,
Or maybe
because we are concerned whether we as humanity need to be unified, and considering that it's the recent movement in, if we consider, for example, Paris Agreement or overall United Nations efforts, because if we will strive for decentralization, then we will lose all the efforts for trying to enter the space and pass great filter.
right. There's of course a, how to say, a tension between centralization and decentralization, right? So on the one hand, there is a need for some people to maintain a bigger picture, which is hard for every individual. Every individual is preoccupied with his or her like family matters, local matters, and so there's a need for higher level governance, maybe like city, like country governance, and the United Nations as some organization trying to govern the whole world. On the other hand, such governments have a tendency, a desire to keep power over the citizens, and so this is the tension kind of between the decentralization and centralization. And the question is, where on that range between entirely centralized and entirely decentralized, which one is the best way to move forward into a future past the great filter?
And
So-
since these are two driving forces, centralization, decentralization, we can see that there is a potential for conflict between fiat and cryptocurrency, because fiat basically are emitted by central banks, but cryptocurrency is stored between people, and there is no central entity. And whether governments will take active measures to prevent the growth of cryptocurrency and the growth of decentralism, and whether it will lead to some conflicts or the loss of democracy, we are also unsure. So we want to
yes, that's a
discuss this.
very acute observation. So money is a big tool for governments exercising power, controlling the economics of their state, but also about exercising power between governments. For example, the US dollar is used to be the world currency, right? But it ceases to have that dominant role. For example, China is largely decoupled from the world economics. It has its own economy and doesn't use US dollar. And then come decentralized payment systems like PayPal, which threaten the power of the government, because in PayPal you can kind of it's not located to any particular government, right? So how do you pay tax? How does government keep track of how much money you have in PayPal? And this is even more exacerbated with cryptocurrencies, which can move transparently and silently between countries. And this really threatens the whole money as a tool for governments to control, because now they're losing control. And yeah, will this help us pass the great filter? No, I'm talking a lot, and Damir has been talking a lot. It's really time for you to add some comments and some thoughts. Don't hesitate.
Mm. Shivan, can you go first?
Okay, fair enough.
In my opinion, I'm really interested in the cryptocurrency. So currently, Bitcoin and some other major cryptocurrency exist as like a gold, like a digital gold. So in that case, so some yes, like also I don't know how to work on, but I
That's remarkable. They can these days create his or her own cryptocurrency, right? Whereas the blockchain technology is public, and so that's a very democratic but also very chaotic thing, right? So cryptocurrencies are created and then they grow like bubbles and then suddenly they burst, right? And recently, um, who's this guy who got arrested, right, for creating its own cryptocurrency and kind of somehow um, millions of dollars somehow suddenly vanished, right? Yes, good comment. Okay, thanks. Next, who is next? Volunteers. You see, there's nothing, cannot do anything wrong. Just say your opinion, your comment, your thought. And so now you're ready to share some thoughts. Any thought?
So regardless of this discussion point, when I was preparing for this presentation, I thought that the economies are centralized by like big tech companies, very like elite, as Tamir mentioned. So, and I think it'll be getting worse and worse. So I was just so worried about the future of the economy.
I see. Thank you. Very good point. Okay, next. So Ayman, yes, you're volunteering. Go ahead.
Okay, I would like to comment on number 4. Do masses strive for collective prosperity?
Yes.
I personally think that human beings are too greedy to think collectively. So I think people go for individual prosperity. However, prosperity can be or is generally collective in the sense that it affects the whole society rather than one or a few individuals. And also the prosperity of an individual is really dependent upon the prosperity of society because we are all affected negatively by crisis.
Very good. Yes, thank you. That's very acute observation. Yes, and just to add some comment, yes, individuals want to do better than their peers, and to this end, people compare themselves to their peers, to their neighbors, right? So people living in a poor country, if they do a little bit better than their neighbors, then they are happy. But when they move to a rich country, suddenly, although nothing has changed, suddenly they're relatively worse off, and then they want to catch up with their new neighbors. And conversely, when people from a rich country move to maybe a poor country, then they realize how well they are doing, and that puts things in perspective. So I fully agree with you that people are kind of selfish, and on top of that, it's always kind of like a relative selfishness compared to their immediate neighbors, and not compared to global prosperity. Thank you. Do we have more volunteers? I don't really want to put people on the spot, so more volunteer commenters?
Can I go for it?
Yes, yes, please.
Okay, so about the section 1, the decentralized economics, I have some curious point of this actually. So the definition of the great filter is for some of the struggles that humanity will need to develop. But I don't think that the decentralized manner is the ultimate point of the economics. So the Fed and the EC controls about somewhat the world economics just only by the interest, but not by the some manufacturing stuff inside of it. So I guess the question is at least I think that that the question should be changed not as a decentralized manner, but how can we develop the I don't think that decentralized the Bitcoin or whatever the blockchain is the future of the economics, but the as more in efficient way because the Bitcoin or other blockchain technology is mostly inefficient as electricity and also inefficient as the trust manner. If we have some trustable institution inside of it or having some powers like the Fed or the ECs or each country each country's central bank, then we don't need that kind of that. So that was my point, and I'm not sure that because it's quite radical assessment rather than just only about the presentation.
Yes, thank you. Very good. Yeah, we're running out of time. So let's wrap things up. So next time, which will be in 1 week, right? There will be another presentation on this topic A, future of economics and occupation, right? And who will give that presentation again, Damir?
Ensu and Jacque.
Oh, wonderful. Yes, I like for you to share responsibility. Great, great. Yes. And after that, we will again try to have some discussion. Now, I understand that this is a very challenging to enter in such a discussion. There's also the issue about being fluent in English. So yeah, when I put some of you on the spot, please, this is with good intent, but it's of course even better when somebody volunteers to join the discussion. And you notice there's there's another voluntary comment. Hallelujah. Yes, go ahead.
I want to comment on the fifth one.
Yes.
Are Ethiopian motives achievable? I think the notion of what constitutes a perfect society varies among individuals, cultures, and eras. For instance, a utopian society for someone in the 18th century might prioritize agricultural abundance and religious freedom, while someone in the 21st century might envision a world with advanced technology, environmental sustainability, and universal human rights. Because of this subjectivity, there is no singular unchanging blueprint for Ethiopia as societal values change and evolve. So does the vision of an ideal world. Thus, I think it will be almost impossible to achieve a utopian society.
Thank you. Yes, that's a good observation, and I fully agree. Okay, so yeah, we have only 1 minute left. So let us all thank the presenter and the entire group of today's first half of topic A. Let's thank everybody again. And then we'll meet again